Good morning. Can you all hear me? Is it okay? Okay. That was everything he said is a lie. So, except the mineral water. It's a real pleasure to be here in front of you today. It's my first time in Finland, and I'm originally from Copenhagen, so I guess we're family to some extent. We don't do as much ice bathing as you do. I did my first ice bathing just a few days ago, which was extremely nice. And I can say Leffe also did his first ice bathing. I thought every Finnish person had to do this as somewhat the first thing. But if you heard someone scream in the middle of the night, that would probably be him as he jumped in the water. So, I'm here today with one simple task, and that is to share with you a few ideas. And the beautiful thing about ideas is that you are invited to pick them up and play with them, or you are invited to push them away and discard them if they do not apply to the way you see the world, to the way you live, or to the way you learn. But I truly believe that there is nothing more inspiring in the world than a good idea. And so this talk, Exponential Thinking, Mindset for the Leaders of Tomorrow, is meant as an invitation for you to play with the idea of exponential thinking, and I'll dig in deeper with what that actually means. But first I'd like to just introduce you a little bit more to my background, because as Leffe said, I've done a few things. It's not really the case. Everything I've done, I believe, has been around playing with a specific idea. And the first job I ever got out of my university was working for this company, There Is Rock. Has anyone ever heard about them? It's a very small, show of hands if anyone has ever heard about them. Because we're a very small little Copenhagen-based consultancy house that works specifically with training people how to think. And the trick about thinking, which comes obvious to everybody because all of us are doing it the whole time, is that most of the time we're not in control. And so my career started out a lot about thinking, almost philosophically. But you find out in business, when you make decisions, all these decisions are based on a very specific way that you think. And so when you help bigger organizations navigate the future, you always start with asking them, are you aware of how you think? Now this movement of this career for me led me to work with a lot of different people around the world. One of them was the PTC group. So I'm from Copenhagen, but I live in Manila. And the PTC Group is a Philippine maritime conglomerate. It has 7 different industries it's involved in, 23 different business units. It's somewhat of a diversified conglomerate. Has anyone in here been working with PTC at all? Yeah, we have a few, yeah. So in maritime we deal a lot with crew management. We have our own training institution called Philcomsat. We also build seafarer houses for the Philippine seafarers. We also deal with microfinance and credit for seafarers coming back and going to ships. We basically build an ecosystem around seafaring in the Philippines. And has anyone ever been on board of a ship with Filipino seafarers? Yeah, a lot, right? Because every third seafarer is actually Filipino. And so coming here, and I'm not from maritime, learning about how much influence this company has in the maritime industry, my task was very simple. I was supposed to help them innovate. And I did this for some time, but I quickly learned that I'm dealing with an industry, first of all, that I'm not an expert in, and second of all, that has a lot of legacy, a lot of history. And these two things takes a lot of time in inviting people to play with new ideas. Unfortunately, some of the experience I dealt with was that the individuals in these industries saw themselves as the smartest people in the room. And respect to that, because when it comes to making strong decisions, you sometimes need to slam your hand on the board and say, I know what's best, because I've done so before. The problem is, as we go into our future, change, even though nothing new, is accelerating faster than before. So what's done before is old, but it gets older faster. And we'll dig a little bit deeper into what that actually means, because it's driven by technology. Which led me to my last company, Alpha Rock Capital. I'm visiting here as well with my co-founder, Mark Rocker. He's sitting here in front. We go into Copenhagen afterwards to talk with some of our investors. But what we do here is build new online businesses I got very intrigued by this idea of, okay, if new thinking can involve in new business models, why should we not try and do so ourselves? So enough about what I've done. Now I think we should look about what you want to do. And I start with this question, and I love this question. What are you certain of? What are you certain of? No one says nothing.
Change.
Change. Certain of change. That's a good one. All right, another one. Yes, I think one of the things is that certainty is very hard to be certain of because things are changing. And it's been like this for a number of years, right? Would you believe that there was once a time where everybody thought the world was flat? And I tell you as much, when the world was flat, shipping wasn't that popular. Or at least it was a very high-risk industry. But what happened was that Copernicus realized the world was round. He did so using his technology at this time. And as this understanding, this idea suddenly started to spread, shipping became something much more valuable than it was before. There was suddenly a lot of new countries, a lot of new treasures, a lot of new adventures that could be taken. And so this simple idea grew into a completely new world. And we are facing the same today. Because what's changing, driven by technology, is us. That's the first standard deviation. It's us. We are changing first. How are we changing? Well, our behavior is changing. Anyone know what they're doing? Selfie, right? Why do you take a selfie? Any idea? Why would you take a selfie? It's the only way you can add value to a picture. Now this is Hillary before she was, while she was trying to become president. And obviously all these individuals want to prove that they were there. There's plenty of pictures of Hillary. There's none of me and Hillary. The idea here is that a selfie allows me suddenly to add value to a very simple action, but this is the first time in human history this is possible. And you might think it's funny that they're turning their back to Hillary, but what they're also turning their back to is an entire industry. Anyone remember the wind-up cameras? Of course. Kodak, right? Moments worth remembering. What we didn't understand is that Kodak actually, beyond being a picture company, they had a very advanced supply chain behind them. They were in the chemical and paper industry. And this whole industry, because of a simple behavior, started to fall away. So these are the things that I like to look for. Not how much technology is changing the world, but how technology is changing ourselves. And I've tried to work with this. My background, I've studied neuroscience and behavioral economics because I think it's very interesting to say, if I can change the way I act, then I can change the world around. And what I started to notice was that the modern day fear factor is no longer like a tiger in the bush. The modern day fear factor, at least for many young people out there, is whether or not we're connected, whether or not we're disconnected. The spike in our brain is similar to that of fear if you are actually threatened. And so I was curious about figuring out what the heck is going on in my head. How much of this is something I need and how much of this is something I want. So I tried to the very best extent to go a place that I assumed had no technology, and I lived a life as a monk. Because what other life out there than a Buddhist monk would allow me to be free of technology? And then you probably say, well, Alex, who took the picture? Little did I know that every Buddhist monk, of course, has a smartphone. This puzzled my brain. I didn't understand how this could be possible. As a matter of fact, as a Buddhist monk, you don't just shave your head and wear a robe. You live by a lot of different rules. 126 to be specific. But none of these rules judged out the aspect of using a smartphone. Mostly because the smartphone was used as a knowledge vessel, a library. And so, I don't really speak much Thai, but luckily, Google Translate does. And so in this small temple, I had a servant that was technological to help me translate what my teacher was telling me in Thai into this language, which is Pali. It's like Latin for Southeast Asia. So I was very intrigued about, okay, perhaps technology has its purpose, but only if used very specifically. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, we approached all these issues we have from a different perspective. And I think this statement is one of my favorite ones. We cannot solve problems using the same kind of thinking we use in creating them. We need a little more perspective to what it is we actually are against. So, using some of these classical tools, this is Gartner, one of my favorite research companies as well, and just to introduce you to what this is, it's called the hype cycle. And all these technologies are something Gartner, which is this company here, are put on a curve saying, okay, all these are being hyped up, meaning we talk a lot about them, we want to use them, but they are not ready yet. And over time, they flat out, meaning we can suddenly start to build on them. If you look, some of these are AI, some of these are different software as a service. So I started saying, okay, the smartphone is the one that's right now in my hand. Which ones can I expect within the next 5 to 10 years, more than 10 years, 2 to 5 years, so on and so forth. And I use this to try and influence the people I was working with and say, you gotta stay ahead of the curve. Because failure to do so means that you're gonna be surprised. And everybody likes surprises, as long as they're good, of course. One of the surprises I think the world kind of suddenly woke up to was that the cost of launching a startup has fallen dramatically because of this fast-moving wave of technology. From something like $5 billion back in the early 2000s to a little under $1,000 today, because this is hopelessly outdated as well. So here comes the little catch. From an idea spread to someone of you, to starting a startup, actually making a change, something you can start any day. And we've seen what the impact of that is. We've seen these unicorns, they're called, billion-dollar companies, ramp up faster and faster. Now, whether or not they are actually this much worth, if some of you have been following WeWork's evaluation, many of these unicorns might not have the cash, but they do have the valuation, which means that they are threatening a lot of different companies in a lot of different sectors very, very fast. So, this relates to this simple curve here, which is called exponential thinking, or exponential. Exponential means a doubling of something. Now, it sounds very simple, and when I say technology doubles in power every year, for example, you get a faster smartphone, or you get a faster internet connection, that's something we can relate to. It's actually called Moore's Law, which is the doubling of computer power every year. Sounds very simple, but it's very hard for our brain to understand, because the human brain thinks linearly. If I were to take 30 steps of 1 meter right here, I would be probably through the wall someplace. But I have a good idea of where I'd be on 30 steps. But if I took 30 exponential steps, doubling in size every step, first of 1 meter, second of 2, then of 4, then of 8, on the 30th step, I'd be 26 times around planet Earth. This is the element of surprise. You don't have to think so much about this, because you can just look back in time and get the idea. What do you think these guys are doing? I can tell as much as this is Houston. Right? These guys are putting the guy on the moon. And behind these walls here, well, we could use a little more diversity. But behind the walls here, they had a lot of these boxes. If someone can see it says IBM, what do you think that is? A computer? Yeah? It's actually a hard disk for 5 megabytes. If you ever thought about what's called downloading from the internet, that's what this is downloading. We've come from this to this, right? As a matter of fact, 5 megabytes is free today. You can just start Cloud or Dropbox or Google Drive. And we all walk around with one of these in our pockets, right? A billion times faster, a billion times smaller, and a million times more efficient with that combined computing power in this room. Let's send a man to the moon. And we can use it for anything we like. That's the beauty of this exponential growth of technology. You can put a man on the moon, or you can take a selfie, or you can watch a cat video. Technology is at your hand. I'd like to get a little closer to you with this example, so you can feel how fast this movement actually is, of exponential growth. Imagine you're sitting in this stadium, on the top row. You're not going to be sitting here to see a game, you're going to be sitting here till the end of your days. You will get water, but you will not get food. Does anyone know how long the human body can go with water but without food? Come on, correct? Now, water you will get from a little tap I put down on the field, it drips a drop. One drop of 1 milliliter every minute. But the drop is exponential, meaning it grows twice its size every minute. So the first minute, it's 1 drop of 1 milliliter. The second minute, it's 1 drop of 2 milliliter. So on and so forth. 2, 4, 8, 16. So my first question is, will you drown or will you die of starvation? Any idea? You will drown first, I'll tell you that. So, second question, how long time will it take before this stadium is filled up with water? Any idea? A week? Who thinks a week? Less than a week? Yeah? Less than a week? Less than a day. One thinks less than a day. Oh, I think someone might be cheating. The real answer is 44 minutes. 44 doublings is enough to fill this stadium with water. And I've used this example a few times, and sometimes people come up and say, hey Alex, what if this stadium was twice as big? It will take 45 minutes. It doesn't really matter. The trick is that it's faster than we can think. But here comes the catch. When do you think you realize that something is wrong? In what minute do you realize that something is wrong? Because in 44, it doubles every time in size. If 44 is full, 43 is half full, 42 is a quarter, 41 is 1/8. Around 36 minutes, there's nothing but a little water on the playing field. And then it moves fast. So when thinking about technology and exponential thinking, 2 things needs to be remembered. It's faster than you think. And if you wait till you can see there's danger, it's too late. The risk about working with technology is not so much what we do, it's how long we choose to wait. Just yesterday, the Global Maritime Issues Monitor came out. It's one of my favorite reports, because it gives a good feeling of exactly what's growing in the industry. And again, play with this idea, because this is as much as an idea than anything else out in the world. But what they do here is that they take a lot of different problems faced in the maritime industry. This is from 2018, I'll show you 2019 afterwards. And they ramp it up in 2 different sizes, likelihood and impact. And then whether or not you're prepared for it in the industry. 2018 was interesting. Some of the strategies we worked a lot with the PTC was definitely about the cyber attacks and data theft, because most of it was caused by human error. So we were looking at different kinds of styles and how can we approach this, how can we build resilient strategies, how can we train people the right way so that the ship of tech, which is growing, will be secure. But I actually don't want you to look at all these things, I just want you to see the density. Right here, there was only 2 aspects that was least prepared for, and a number of them went for the medium preparedness. 2019 gave me a little bit of a chill. It looks like this. There's a higher density, as you can see. There's a little more of these red zones of least preparedness. Some of them are completely new, autonomous technology, and a lot of climate. Decarbonization of shipping, failure of climate change mitigation and adaptation, global economic crisis, many of these macro trends that over the last year have been growing up. So this aspect of saying, okay, we go from something, okay, we can manage this, to a more dense movement of things we're least prepared for. In my case, this is waiting too long, right? This is saying, okay, we can afford to wait, but unfortunately the time is up. Now, there's no reason to panic, of course, because luckily I see a lot more young people in this room, and this is fantastic than usually when I speak to executives. So no offense, but you guys are actually the ones, you're the players in the field, and I look forward to see what you can do, all of you. Because there's a number of different technologies that's going to impact us that really offer a lot of different opportunities. We've been used to mobile technology and internet, IoT, and so on and so forth. But slowly we're seeing these artificial intelligence, robotics, biotechnology, virtual reality jump into place. And most importantly, a lot more internet users. The reason internet users are important is because these are new brains being connected. These are new individuals that can help you, or you can help them. And by all means, we all are in this together. So let me give you an idea of some of the technologies out there, so you can understand the tools. I don't want to say the tools are going to set us free, but the tools are definitely the ones that are going to help us solve some of these complex issues. We always speak about robotics and the idea of, okay, when are things going to be taken over? And I like robotics as a starting point for the discussion, because really they present a very good use case of how far technology has come. Because a robot is a constellation, almost an orchestration of many different things, right? There's a rider, there's a battery, there's a artificial intelligence of some kind. And in 2013, this is a DARPA defense competition where people can compete with their search and rescue robots. Robots wasn't really anything that would, pose a threat. On the contrary, you would always say that if you were to escape from a robot chasing you, you just take the steps. Because it is actually very, very difficult to program a robot to take the steps. It requires a lot of different gyros and balance and so on and so forth. So, not really the seafarer of the future to any extent. But you follow this forward, right? And you have in mind that the computing power doubles every year. So in 2016, this guy might not be new to you. This looks like, if I had more beers that other night, that probably looked like me going home. I think that's much the case. But the trick is that now this guy can actually walk in an environment where people walk. And can conduct simple exercises. This is a guy who wants to keep his job. And also, right, you're very quick to feel like, what the hell is this guy doing? And the robot HR is probably going to be a thing in the future as well. But the real edge of this is it's not going to stop. This was last year. Right? So the competitive power of some of these things and the computing power of these robotics, they don't stop. They double in size. Now, whether or not this is obviously still a very expensive tool, and whether or not it's going to be implemented right away is doubtful, but it's a good idea to keep in mind that what these things can do don't really have limits. Computing power, at least to this extent, they haven't found limits to it. And so it's only a question about time when, when they're going to be a real threat to us. Again, this is that's just a joke, but you get the picture, right? You get the picture, and the underlying mechanism of this technology is artificial intelligence. It's actually not robots that are gonna be the first encounter, I believe. It's the aspect of having a virtual assistant like Siri. I think by this point everybody has been using Siri to some extent, right? And Siri is a really remarkable little gadget, even though she's completely useless still. But when she came out, this idea about asking questions, any question, and she would find the answer, even if you had a bad day and you wanted to find a bridge, Siri would still find you a few bridges, right? So there was no real catch to this intelligence. It was really smart. It was just giving you answers, and Apple realized this and started having their precautions, and they understood, okay, maybe we should give them the right answer to the question instead of just pushing the answer that they're actually asking for. And so today they have this helpline. If you ask Siri to find a place to kill yourself, you can still ask her to remind you to kill yourself. So if you want to kill yourself tomorrow at 3 o'clock, just set up an appointment. I thought it was funny until I started researching into it. Unfortunately, in shipping, the suicide rates of seafarers is actually quite high. And one of the big things we challenged with, we had a lot of cases of unfortunate seafarers going a little crazy at sea. And we started having some of these mental health programs, both exercise, diet. I started experimenting with robot. Because robot is like Siri's function, but very specific. This is a chatbot that monitors your mood. And you'd be surprised, you'll have access to all these slides afterwards, but you'd be surprised that a simple therapist, even if it's a chatbot and asking the simple questions, how are you, right? You know it might not be a robot, but you can get to express yourself. And expressing yourself about mental health, unfortunately still in this day and age, is considered a taboo to some extent. Because you, as an individual, as an asset, once you start expressing that you are not feeling well, you turn into a liability. You turn into the risk. You can't work as much, you can't do as much. So this safe haven, this space is something Robot offers. And the research that they're doing right now is showing that people actually would rather talk to a robot than a person. Because a robot doesn't have any, doesn't feel guilt towards you, or doesn't want to impose their beliefs on you, they just want to listen. I think there's a nice balance that we need to function between how we need to talk to robots in the future and how we need to talk to actual people that care. But at least for now, this is one of the solutions out there. The synergies, however, between robot and machine are growing very fast. And there was this remarkable report a few years back from Ernst & Young that automation, we say the robots are coming. You actually should think about it this way. Robots are coming in 3 different sizes. First, the algorithms, which we currently have, because algorithms help us calculate, they help us sell in the stock market, they help us conduct medical analysis and so on and so forth. They work in the background. The second wave, which is slowly starting now, is called augmentation. Augmentation means that you use a robotic device on artificial intelligence to help you do your job. The last wave is autonomy, or autonomous vessels, which is an intelligence or robot that does the job for you. This is the scary part. But the area we're opening up for now, augmentation, asks of you to work together with some kind of machine or some kind of artificial intelligence. And I just brought 3 examples to show you what this might be. This is 3 of the big dogs out there. The first one is Google, and this is Google's automatic voice assistant, who is, in this case here, ordering a haircut appointment.
Let's say you want to ask Google to make you a haircut appointment on Tuesday between 10 and noon. What happens is the Google Assistant makes the call seamlessly in the background for you. So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you. Let's listen.
So how can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a woman's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second.
Very human.
Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have a 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Scary? Are you looking forward to this? Yes, right. A lot of these small issues that no longer needs your attention to it. Very specific though, right? Very specific actions. In the Philippines, I don't know if you guys know, but we deal a lot with what's called business process outsourcing. So a lot of Filipino workers are working in these big call centers, and they are doing a lot of these service calls, whether to banks or to insurance providers. That thing is a real threat to them, because it's a very simple procedure, but it's thousands of jobs at stake. So for some, it might be a very nice way to having a personal assistant to book restaurants, and a good way of impressing people. I'll just call my shares here. For others, it's actually like a dream. So this is the very nice balance of saying, okay, this is going to help me a lot, but it's also going to have a negative effect down the line for someone else. The second example here is a program called Cerigo. I used to work a lot with future education, both in the Philippines with their science, technology, engineering, and math strategy, and as well in Denmark, specifically for high schools, because I think there is something about the educational system that is a little old school, maybe a little too old school. I had the pleasure of meeting with the University of Finland, what's it called? Yeah? Finland University, where Monday was it, right? Yeah, Monday, just to exchange some of the learning strategies Finland is using. I mean, Finland is still a remarkable example of how education, I feel, should be done. It should be spread more on this idea of learning about phenomena instead of just learning about things. But Cerigo here is a learning assistant, which might be interesting for Aboma. Because what this system can do is it can monitor students studying and how they complete their texts and tests, as well as help a teaching assistant or teacher monitor what subjects are falling behind. So I'll just show you this combination. It is a Cerigo and Amazon Alexa in combination.
Instructor, let me see if I can get this to work for us.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, Andrew, I've successfully connected to your Cerigo account.
Oh, that's right.
Your AST 111 has 90 students on track and 10 who are falling behind.
You know what they say, AI is easy, AV is still hard.
Okay, I've sent
Yeah, Leslie, you gotta help me here.
Your students are most active on Friday morning.
Which one is this? Which one is it? Try to just pump it up.
Individual times vary, but overall, your students are more efficient in the evening between 9 p.m. and midnight.
Okay, let's try again.
Instructor, let me see if I can get this to work for us. I'm going to
Thank you.
take off this mic and hope this doesn't explode on us.
Alexa, start Cerigo.
Okay, Andrew, I've successfully connected to your Cerigo account.
How's my astronomy course doing?
Your AST 111 has 90 students on track and 10 who are falling behind. Would you like me to nudge those 10?
That's a good idea.
Okay, I've sent push notifications to those students who are off track.
When did my students study?
Your students are most active on Friday mornings, between 9 a.m. and noon.
When should my students study?
Individual times vary, but overall your students are more efficient in the evening between 9 p.m. and midnight.
Is there anything I should cover in class tomorrow?
Some students are struggling with the concept of galaxy clusters and superclusters. You may want to cover these items in person.
Can you remind me about superclusters?
From your content, a supercluster is a large group of smaller galaxy clusters or galaxy groups. It is among the largest known structures of the cosmos.
So you get the idea here. It's basically a teaching assistant that helps you keep track on very, very specific areas of learning. And it's also kind of a good helper when it comes to keeping an overview of all that knowledge that we all need to know and how far we are in knowing that. I know for a fact that the schooling system I grew up with kind of left people behind. So it was a big issue for me because I was a slow learner. I guess I'm still a slow learner, but I take my time because I think some of these things are important. The last one here, I mean, just to show of hands, how many in here has ever been at a meeting where a lot of good things has been discussed, but by the end of the meeting, no one has a clue of what to take action on? Right? Yeah, there's all the ones who don't put up their hands. I know you put them up inside your head because it's a clear problem. So this is Microsoft's new little meeting assistant.
On the desk, we have a prototype device built on similar technologies to the ones we showed you earlier.
That's right.
It picks up both audio and video that you can pair with AI services and Microsoft 365 to help with key tasks like identification, voice transcription, and even real-time translation.
Welcome, Jamal.
It's
Hello,
this
Dave.
little pyramid here.
The AI services even identify Dave and Jamal as expected meeting attendees. I'm gonna go join them.
Good morning, Rana. Would you like to start the meeting?
Yes, please. I know Katie and Julia are coming from another meeting, so let's go ahead and get started. Dave, what's the latest with the smart building pilot?
I've already done some preliminary analysis on the data, and I'm finding some high temperature outliers. We should discuss it later in the meeting.
Okay, sounds great.
Dave, do you know if we'll have enough of the Yanzi multi-sensors to update the showcase floor?
Actually, I have some concerns about the location of those sensors. We should hold off on doing a one-to-one replacement until I can...
Oh, I'm really sorry to interrupt, Dave. I actually have some ideas about the replacement, so maybe let's connect after the meeting.
Okay, that's good to know. I'll follow up with my team and post an update to the channel after the meeting.
And I'll follow up and send Yanzi an email about those showcase sensors.
Okay, that sounds great.
Now, take a look at the transcript behind me on the left.
So you get the idea here, right? It's not AI as a supercomputer. It's AI for very, very, very specific purposes. It's artificial intelligence that goes in and takes some of these things that we spend an awful lot of time on. And these very small micro solutions coming here from 3 different big companies, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, are all looking at how you behave, right? It comes back to how we behave as human beings and what's best for us, at least their idea of what is best for us. The trick is whether or not we pay attention to how we behave and whether or not we take advantage of this unique opportunity for using technology. Not technology to solve all our problems, but technology to almost with surgical precision to help us work better, communicate better, or learn better. And the trick is it doesn't really stop, right? So we gotta take action before action is taken for us. I really like this quote as well from Andy Grove of Intel. Every company faces a critical point when it must change dramatically to rise to the next level of performance. If the company fails to see and seize that moment, it will start to decline. Key is courage. Courage is, I'd say, the top 1 skill for the 21st century. It's an old feeling, an old word that usually probably best is known for tales of heroes, but it's a special feeling, and I think some of you, if you feel inside of you, when the last time you were courageous, when the last time you went into something, and might not have a specific idea of how this turned out, but you're going to give it everything you have anyways, those are the moments where I at least feel most alive. It's not bravery, because bravery is too associated with confidence. Many of these things we're going into now, there's no real solution that can be based on historical facts. There's nothing like it. So you just gotta stand in the arena and you gotta feel this. It's not a comfortable feeling, but this feeling of courage, because you might fall as much as you might rise. And it's a trait that helps leaders, as I've seen, as I try to exercise as well. It helps you find out that the boundaries and the borders you set for yourself, they're not limits. They can be moved. And they can be moved with every drop, whether it be in a stadium, technological stadium, or whether it be you actually, well, I guess, trying something that you perhaps don't really know how it's going to turn out. From a business standpoint, the courageous aspects are some of these things here. Right? This is a mixture of many different technologies, but this is the reality we stand in. Power without grids, sanitation without sewers. For those who have seen the new Bill Gates series on Netflix, you will see what he's working on here. Meat without animals, right? 3D printing, growing biological meat. Banking without banks. Mobility without autos, surgery without incision, produce without soil, buildings without construction, ships without sailors. One of my favorite questions when I worked with my former executive team was always to ask, what if your product was free? Right? What would you do if your product was free? But it can be free. And you say, no, it can't. But Uber did it with taxis, Airbnb did it with hotels, Netflix did it with movies. So try and think about what it was free. What would you do? The counter of this, at least to my extent, is what I call the corporate immune system. Right? Any business you will ever work with or work in will have this. A business is set up to survive. And ideas are viruses. Ideas choose to challenge how things are done, sometimes for the better, but most of the time in the beginning for the worse. You might have heard the word disruption a little too much the last few years. Everybody wants to disrupt. Disruption is exactly what the corporate immune system wants to work against. When you come in with a new idea of how to sell something, how to market something, the board, the shareholders, your manager, your executive, whoever it might be who is in charge of making sure that the company survives will go against you. So this is where we need to start. right? Changing the way an organization works from within. I use sometimes the World Economic Forum to kind of get the conversation going. I think they are very good at kind of hammering in the points of what's important going forward. And by far my favorite statement from the last Future Jobs report, it's a report that comes out every year that kind of gives an overview of the industry and how jobs are changing across every industry. But the main statement is quite simple. You need a lot more learning days. You need to find time or make time to learn more. Right? It's no longer enough to stop or go out from education and basically be equipped to work in the world. Education starts from the moment you exit the university, school, whatever it might be. And the skills, well, the skills are changing as well, of course. From 2005 to 2020, focus is still complex problem solving because that's essentially what every single business is trying to do, solve problems. But a number of different, I guess, sub-skills are also climbing the ladder here. People management is a fun one, right? Everybody wants autonomous or automatic ships and automatic factories. What actually comes to play if everything is worked by robots is that you will work more with people. So you have to understand how to work with people to a much closer degree than before. This is what I call know-how. Because this is knowledge that you need to at least try and see if you can engage yourself with. But there's a different kind of knowledge, and that's know-who. And know-who are the champions in this room as well, right? It's the generation that's slowly maturing to take over this industry. Millennials, Gen Z. Deloitte's global millennial survey comes out every year as well. And what they do is monitoring, I'm going to say, what I want as well, right? What the newer, younger workforce generation seeks from the old industry, and what we value truly to either be taught, or to work with, or to create an impact in the world. One of the aspects is that a lot of this preparedness is seen either coming from businesses or from current educators, but also on the sideline here, which I'm sad that it's so small, but individual learning skills. My rule is very simple. You should always, at any time in your entire life, be enrolled in an online course. Not because you should study every day, but you should find time to learn something that might not be in your sector, but something new. So there's a big pressure, of course, on learning something new, but being taught this from the industry already, not necessarily from someplace else. Now, the consequence of this is exits, right? Is the individual, the millennial, the Gen Z leaving the job, which has a trend right now. It's usually around 2 years, 3 years. So this whole idea about locking yourself into a long career is not necessarily the case going forward. I'm not saying this is the way it is, but it's a trend that's slowly growing. So dissatisfied with financial pay is a big one, especially for millennials. But again, the sub-layers here, not enough opportunities to advance, lack of learning and development opportunities is what hungers this generation. It's what they need to kind of feed on. Alternative solutions are jumping up. The gig economy in the Philippines, there's a remarkable amount of these digital nomads. Right? Individuals, young people from 20 up to 28 that has a small e-commerce store and lives their lives on Bali and travels around and takes, it's remarkable. These guys make not much, but a few $1,000s a month, enough for them to live a gorgeous life around Southeast Asia. I thought it was a joke until I started meeting these people and said, well, you're not really doing anything with your life. I said, well, I'm traveling the world with my beautiful girlfriend and I'm living in nice resorts and I only work a few hours a week. And to many people, that's a very appealing offer. To travel the world and make a little money, I mean, that's great. So obviously, that's also taking a touch. I mean, it's also unreliable, and I think it has a significant risk to it, but the opportunity due to technology is now possible. This one is the last slide from the report, but I think it's also very important. It's about how optimistic the younger generation is. And there's a weird skew to it. Because the mature market seems less optimistic than the emerging markets. But I invite you very much to come and visit me in the Philippines or visit me in Asia because you see it. You see that the ability right now to have a smartphone, which in some way is like a fountain of wisdom, right? It's an all-seeing eye. It's a magical thing for many people in Southeast Asia. Seeing these things and working with it gives them an opportunity to to learn more than ever before, and to work with things they've never been able to work with before. So a very big growth from the Southeast sector when it comes to young people being optimistic about the future. And optimism you need. Of course you shouldn't be naive, but you should be optimistic about what comes tomorrow. Because this is also the reality that we're fighting with. Digital is the main reason just half of the companies of Fortune 500 have disappeared since year 2000. The median tenure of a FTSE is that top companies has gone from 8 years to 5 years in 2016. So CEOs for big corporations have shorter lifespan than the companies. And last but not least, this was what made me take my first job. I learned this from my old boss. I met him at a conference where he also was speaking, and I said to him, what should I learn in the future in order to survive? Because all this you've been telling me means that I'm basically, everything I learn is going to be obsolete anyways. And he said, yeah, you need to learn all the time. Because everything you learned 5 years ago is slowly getting old. And if you rely on a job that is built on knowledge more than 10 years ago, I would start learning new things. This is for you, by the way, just to give you a moment to breathe. Because I think this is probably one of the best things I learned while being a monk. Not so much the aspect of shaving my head and living in a robe, but taking a minute to reflect what it is I'm actually supposed to do here. Because it's a lot of information, and I know it's not very tangible when what you do Monday morning it's not very clear if you want to ride this wave of change. But you can't lose yourself in it. Right? Mental health, again, an area I'm very passionate about, is a quite critical aspect of business and life these days. For those who've ever read the book Homo sapiens or Homo Deus from Yuval Harari, he works with statistics, and one of his most scary statistics are that you have a bigger chance of dying from your own hand than armed conflicts and natural disasters combined. We pose a big threat to ourselves, mostly because all this change sometimes can be scary. But I'm here to tell you it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be, because if it changes, you have a chance to change with it. And exactly to the person who said the only thing you can be certain of is change, as also the opportunity you have to make new businesses, to make new jobs, to live a different life with this wave of opportunities that's coming from technology. I see life more like white river rafting now. And I used to say that shipping is actually also kind of this thing, right? For those who do not know, this is one of the most dangerous sports in the world. You basically only navigate your canoe down these white river rafting, violent rivers in the US, around the world. But what you need to always have in mind is the control of yourself. Right? You can never prepare for some of these things. It's not to say that you should go out and do this, but this is the storm that you can enjoy the ride with. One of the most common questions I get is, okay, I know I need to do something. I need to go out there and I need to learn new things, but I don't have the confidence to do so. Right? Confidence is a funny word to me, because confidence is always something you get after the fact. After you've done something and you know you do it well, you become confident. Right? And then people come back to me and say, okay, it's maybe not confidence, but I don't have the necessary skills to do so. I lack competences. I don't have this drive yet, but I'm working on it. And I say, well, competences is also something you get once you are in it, right? You learn as you go. The first thing you need to do is commit. Commit to one thing, small victory. That's one thing we use a lot in my new company. Small victory. Not the big ones to begin with, small victory. Because you will see, once you commit, no matter how big, how small, you will need courage. Because as you go out and say, I'm going to do this thing, whether it be lose weight, or whether it be to build a new business, or whether it be to join a startup that I love, it's scary. And you might fail. But luckily, with people around you, and with so much knowledge accessible to you, it's a very big opportunity for you to succeed as well. So these 4 C's in this order is essentially what needs to be set into effect if you want to thrive in the 21st century. In PTC, I made this program, I call it Exceed. executive continuous education. Because I realized that many of these managers I had in this company, great at their job, but lacking the why, right? Why do you do it? Why do you still wake up every morning and do the job you do? I know what you do, I know how you do it, but why do you do it? The focus was always the same. I need to have you commit to a why. That's the first commitment. The reason you do your job, the reason you wake up every morning and you're eager to do so, is because you have a purpose. And if you can't find it, then define it. And that's a hard deal. That's a very tough deal. Because you might realize that you're living a meaningless life. But luckily, here's an opportunity to give it meaning. And the way we drive this is to say, I don't really care about your business, I care about you. Right? That's a new conversation for many old companies. Saying, forget the business, let's talk about you for a moment. Let me say that if I can make you the best person, I also believe that you can make the best business around you. So for those of you who want to join the workshop tomorrow, this is some of the dimensions we'll play with. We'll play with how we make a playbook, I call it, a leadership playbook. Because there's many different scenarios out there of technology and changes in consumer behavior and changes in your behavior that you need to at least have a guide to, maybe not win, but navigate this uncertainty. And there's 3 sections to it. A playground, find playmates, and define play rules. Playground is setting up where you can experiment, right? In a business, this might be an innovation center. I think that word is, unfortunately, almost deflated now. It's at least defining an area where you can afford to fail. 2, it's finding the know who, right? The people who might be able to help you in this future arena, this future scene. They might be from the maritime industry, they might be data scientists, they might be anthropologists, there might be something completely third, gamers. We're talking a lot about gaming as well and behavior. But it's at least having an understanding of, okay, I don't know everything, but I need to go out and find a person that knows this. And last but not least, the play rules. Because it is a game to some extent. We do experiment, but we should experiment towards a target. Maybe you don't call it KPIs, maybe you call it KLI, key learning indicators. So you measure this and how much you can afford to spend on your people learning. And you learn best when you fail, right? So that might also be taken into consideration. But these 3 elements into a playbook at least gives you an idea Monday morning. If I want to navigate in this future scenario, these are some of the things I need to keep in mind. So I hope this was interesting to you. I hope that you got an idea. I hope you will get to share that idea. If you want the slides, you can take a picture of this QR code and you can download from there. I'm more than open to take questions. I know we went a little over time, but yeah, thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for being here today as well.